Hello, my friends. So this is kind of a spot stream where I saw some fun videos pop up in the Serious Film Fighters group, and what my goal for this is, I don't want to do like every Tato Talks wax as like a huge class because it takes like 10 hours to prepare, right? But what I need to do to be able to make good whack content is to practice streaming and talking, right? Like, not every stream can be like this huge class. There's just not enough hours in a month to be able to do that. So what I wanted to do is just take some videos from Bale Norn's channel here and just kind of like go through the fights, talk about what I see, make some competitive recommendations, hopefully like find some sweet stuff to steal for myself, because I love finding like just new shots and things and new leads within like other people's videos and then trying to use them. And I also just kind of want to do something fighting related right now because I missed my Tuesday practice because my dog was like a little bit sick, and we all had to cancel and just jonesing for some wax related content. I think I'm like, I don't know if everybody in the chat knows this right now, but I'm recovering from an elbow arthroscopy to clean out some like arthritis and stuff. And like the closer and closer that I get to using my right hand again, I'm super pumped to be able to use it. So I'm finding my desire to do whack related stuff keeps increasing the closer that I get to that. So I think you guys know the rules. Like, we're looking at this stuff through a constructive lens, and we're just looking for polite critique, analysis, our own enjoyment. We're not here to like trash talk anybody. We're not gonna for this. We're going to. I haven't watched any of these, and I'll get into that in a second. For this, we're just going to assume that like the shots that people are taking are really the ones that hit. We're not going to like go into the who missed like what shot stuff that we kind of did in the tournament last time, because A, it was super unfun, and B, again, we don't have as many angles and I wasn't like physically there, right? So I have not watched any of these before. I watched this fight for just a few seconds, and then I decided I wanted to do this fresh. There's another popular, semi-popular, like content creator that is like a good fighter, and I saw them do a video where they like talked about. I don't think it was a stream. I think it was like just a YouTube video that they recorded, and they broke down the fights in a pit, but they like predicted everything that everyone did, and I'm like, wow, like they're right again, like talking about what people would do in the future tense. And I'm like, wait a minute, they watched this before and they wrote it all down, and I could see their like eyes following some text that they wrote. So one of my driving forces here is to just practice going through this stuff in the moment, making it entertaining, interacting with the chat, and that kind of thing. So, all right, let's fire it up. Okay, so this is Tiid versus Darb. This was about 10 days ago, which I think
took place at the Amcard Park at Dusk Hollow in Dallas, Oregon. The fighter on the left is Tiid, and the fighter on the right is Darb.
So this is Tiid, and this is Darb over here.
They started out fighting two swords and switched to sword and shield halfway through. If you enjoyed the content, consider liking the video and please subscribe for more LARP content. Doing so really helps out the channel. They also run a LARP blogging website and a Discord server. If YouTube just isn't enough Balemore content for you, you should consider checking them out. Links in the description below. Thank you for watching, and as always, stay inspired, stay excited, and keep fighting.
Okay, we're gonna look at the first two fights. We're gonna kill the captions and the voiceover so we don't repeat it too many times or frustrate ourselves. I found myself like reading the captions instead of watching the fight, but good example of like a quality voiceover. I dig that. So let's start this out. Okay. So I noticed right away. So for Darb, I like his use of his stance here, where he kind of points his swords at the opponent. I feel like that's something that I wouldn't do all the time, but I feel like in the context of like if we can make an assumption that we've got Darb over, Tiid over here as like a taller, lighter, faster looking guy. He's got these sick Converses right here, so you know he's quick, right? So what Darb does is he kind of points his sword forward a little bit. I would want to say they're like quite a stab, but you can see how they're like kind of low, especially in the first couple of like pulses in stance there. It's kind of a nice like keep away from me, don't charge me down, keep your distance. I think I like that. I think I like that measure because Tiid is doing some good. I think he's doing some pretty good ranging here. He gets hit for it once, but he's keeping like a good distance. And he's using a little bit of side to side around the right. He's kind of like, stay away till I'm ready. And then he kind of raises his sword up a little bit, parallel as he gets a little bit closer. I kind of like that transition, where he's like moving his swords kind of thoughtfully. It's like, okay, as he started to come in closer, he kind of moved them up a little bit because I think he was anticipating a good bonk. I think so. I like that. I think that's defensively proper. I think it kind of relinquishes like the threat of the stab. You can see I was kind of showing it here. He's like, I'll stab you if you try to come closer. So I like that he's doing that. I think that's a good way of like, if you're at a speed or range disparity, that's kind of a good way of saying, I don't want you to come close. You're going to stay where I want you to stay, or I'm going to stab you. So that looks good to me. So we kind of some circling. So I think one thing that's interesting about this is I kind of called that Tiid would be, I think I've been saying Tiid, it's Tiid with a D. I think one thing that I'm surprised about this is it feels like Darb is doing most of the lateral movement here. In spite of the assumption that Tiid being taller and lighter, I had assumed that he would have been more in control of the lateral. So it's strange to see that from like the shorter of the two opponents. This good lateral. Good lateral. Across here. I think the error that Tiid made in here was this shot right here. This is kind of too long of a reach in here. You can see his center of gravity is the whole way down over this knee, right? So if he wants to move from here, he's going to have to push really hard off of this back foot. So having your knee bent like this is definitely the correct position to be in if you want to shoot back. But when you have your back like this over it too, that's like twice as much weight that this leg has to deal with. So his retreat doesn't work out for him. And then Darb is able to just kind of close in and take this arm with a cross. You see how he just kind of comes in here. This is not a cross. I was incorrect. So I really like this position with his swords right here. Let's zoom in. So this has got a high hand position. That looks great because if he tries to cross over this way, it's covered and his sword's creating a lot of defense here. It's also creating, I would say, a pretty good angle with this sword right here. Let's see if I can... I don't think I can zoom in. It's getting it pretty good. Let's get this pink so it pops a little bit more. It's got a pretty good defensive angle here. I think the only thing I would try to switch with this looks like very boxery, which I like. Some nice like pugilism, right? But what I would do is kind of move this out right around here. So I would lift it about this far out so that when you swing, you create some defensive coverage for yourself. I don't mind that his guard is kind of crossed over like in front of his body like that. I do that all the time. I think someone might tell you like, oh, well, his guard should really be like, his sword position should be more like this. And if this is his arm, it's like fully extended here, that might be a little bit like more optimal. But I think that this is a fine position, but I would try to just put this out a little bit further so that it covers this forearm and you don't lose it. But that's like one of those things. I think everybody that wants to fight Florentine should take time practicing going, if you pal with like both hands, you know, chop with one hand and create coverage with the other hand, and then chop with the other hand and create coverage with the other hand. And it should look like, I'm trying to get this positioning correct. It should look like almost like you're trying to cover your own wrist like that, especially when you're fighting from max range. Is probably an S tier Florentine habit to get into, but I think that this is like 75% of the way there in terms of hand position, so that looks good to me. Alright. I think that's what he was going for too, because you could kind of see him slip into that cross-side guard. That looks nice. So this guy down to one sword. He pivots. And he kind of controls the other hand as he moves out and around to the side. So it's like going out, going out, going out. That looked good. Like he kind of kept a good range. He kind of kept this distance at about this length. And he kind of circled around out this way until he saw a good opportunity, and then he got closer. So I thought that looked really good. I think the only thing that I might change there is it looks like I think he went pretty deep and went for a slot to the body with his left hand, which is good. I think he maybe could have tried to like kept controlling this sword and maybe try to hit an arm from a longer range, because like the single sword guy, he's got to swing at you to win, right? Like it's very common for people to try to swing and simul to reset with single sword. So in Florentine, when you have less defensive coverage, you kind of can't ignore that and have to pass it out. So you don't have to drive that close, right? Like this could have been, let's see. Instead of driving the whole way in for the body, you can see how he's cocked back and he wants to swing around like this. Could have just chopped to an arm or like pumped the body forward and then rocked back and chopped the arm while you cover with your other sword. So I think it's just this is fine. Like it looks like he pretty much won. He lost an arm while he did it. But it's just a second alternative that I think is like a little bit safer. Like the right thing to do in a fight is the thing where you win, right? But I'm just trying to pitch some other alternative optimizations that a person could make. So I think that was a good fight one. Let's check fight two.
Doing so really helps out the channel. They also run a LARP blogging website and a Discord server. If you choose,
I like how he's got the same start. He's got the same starting where he's like keeping his tips out and ranging. I really like that because it's like if you come close, you're getting stabbed. So we're starting out with that again.
as always, stay inspired.
Good lateral movement.
Keep fighting.
Okay, that looked like a second by Tiid. That was a second kind of deep drive for the body.
Below. Thank you for watching. And as always, stay inspired.
See how I think he looked like he came around for this arm, and maybe he got his hand, maybe he got his arm. I couldn't really see. I'm not sure. The body language for the call is a little bit indiscriminate here.
Links in the description below. Thank you for watching. And as always,
So I'm not really sure what the result was on that. I think he said you got my arm. That's fine. It looked like he was kind of driving deep out to the body. I think if I was in Tiid's position, what I would do here is throw some shallower shots. Let's see if we can stop it on the frame. I would try to throw something a little bit shallower. I think that this started like it was going to be a deep shot, and Darb backed up a little bit. That made it look a little bit shallower than it was. I think it looks like Tiid wanted the body in this area. So I think if I was Tiid, what I would do, if you notice, coming back again to like the pointed sword stance, one thing that you can use, I think they use it a lot in like HEMA and things like that, it's just called the blade beat, where if we go back, where they're pointed like this, they're super close. You could just take your sword and kind of smack it out of the way. Be like, get serious. I would probably hit this this hand match sword that's closer, and maybe like switch my feet so that this foot's forward, and hand match him, and try to take this sword and just smack this one and be like, all right, get the hell out of here with this tippy nonsense. Like, I'm gonna knock this out of the way just to see if you could try to get them to like force some kind of move. It's kind of a idea for like a counter response that you might do when someone's like trying to range you with these stabs and stuff. So I think my normal advice would be to like try to hit him in the hand from max range, or maybe like the mid sword. But I think for swords pointed straight at me like this, I would try to bop the tip out of the way, get him to feel some pressure, get him to try to step towards me or step offline or something like that, and try to rattle his guard apart with some side-to-side movement and some safe shots. But I think starting with like a blade beat to the tip of the sword, where like basically insisting to your opponent, hey, I want you to show me your real stance now, or I'm gonna hit you and I'm gonna get these swords out of the way, I'm gonna bonk you. Especially since Tiid has like what I would say is a ranged advantage, and possibly like a foot speed advantage. Maybe not like in terms of experience, but certainly in terms of his build. I would start with that and see if I could get this out of the way. So, yeah, he's got that stab. That offhand. The other thing that you can also do when someone's stabbing you a lot is you can just go back for a second. One of the reasons that stabs work in this situation, so you can see Tiid has this foot forward and Darb has this foot forward, right? So his trunk is kind of square towards Darb, which makes it a lot easier for Darb to land the stabs to begin with. So I think like a hand matched position, which basically would change the orientation of Tiid's torso so that it was kind of bent back like this. So if Darb tries to stab, the stab has more of a likelihood of kind of like missing off to the side, especially if you add in some kind of like lateral movement on this axis. So it's not going to like protect you from every stab. It doesn't make you unstabbable, but it makes stabbing you go from like a 100% thing that's for sure going to hit you and kill you down to like a 50%, 40%, 30% speed sureness, depending on like your side-to-side movement, your foot speed. That those kinds of little gambles that you could make really go a long way in terms of like warding off stabs, right? So Darb's got this position where he's like, I'm going to stab you if you get close, and I'm going to pick you apart from long range. You have to think like, okay, well, plan A is he wants to stab me. How do I counter plan A? And then start thinking about how you counter plan B after that. But I think to address plan A of getting stabbed, I would switch our footing so that this foot is forward and that this foot is back to try to get that better torso orientation where the stab is likely to move past me. So I think that's what's going on. Yeah, he just pops him with that left hand. So I like that start to this fight. That's kind of what I was saying before. It's like, okay, hit him in the hand from a safe distance to see if you can get him to move. I think maybe this is like a little bit deep. You could probably hit the higher portion of the sword since his hand is low, and it'll be like a little bit safer. But I think this is a good start. I think his position is maybe a little bit overcommitted here. We talked about having this nice vertical line here. Makes it kind of hard to step back. But Tiid's still getting back fairly quickly. So it's not. I think it's like a good first thing to try to do with that. I think that was a good idea. That was kind of cool. Hey Kenzie, how you doing, bud? Let's go back. The fucking, oh man, I love that. So bonk bonk bonk, and then he's like back with the offhanded spin. The spin, and then the hand comes up. Back like that. That's sick. That's sick. I think that wouldn't be my A plan, but I respect it. I had a good pivot away. I think it is a bonk there, but I think it's really cool to go for like silly stuff. You think this is the first of the fights Tiid starts hand matching too? Okay, let's look back at that. I think I was enamored by the beauty of that spin with like the offside coverage. I didn't even notice that he started hand matching. And you don't have to hand match in Florentine. It's just like a good place to start if they're gonna start stabbing you. Yeah, he's got that foot forward. You're right. That's good eye. Good call, Joe. He kind of went for like a flurry there. I feel like maybe not in the context of Florentine, but I like what he does with his right hand there, where he chops in and then kind of like he chops in and then like loops around for his next shot. I feel like I want that for like his left hand and not his right hand. Maybe he's more confident with his right hand. I feel like we started hand matching here, right? But you can kind of tell that the right hand is kind of do the dominant work of performing the most attacks, and then the left hand is kind of creating some passive coverage. When you're hand matching, you do have to use your left hand or your offhand or whatever hand is forward. Basically, whatever hand is forward is probably going to be your dominantly attacking hand, right? Like, it's the closest to the opponent, so you have to have good control. I think there's an argument to make where, like, if you're hand matching someone and then you attack with that backhand, like, it's a little bit unexpected. But I think that is something that you would do, like, deeper into the context of more fights. But I still like that. And I respect the attempt at doing something cool. Like, that's always worth points in my book. That was good. That was like a good long left-handed attack where he's just like, I think Darb tried to close too quickly here, and Tiid just threw in his left hand and got him in the body. So that's always good stuff. Let's see here. See if we figure out why that happened. I think it looked like Darb kind of just I think he seemed like he was more playing a rangier counter-striking game, and he tried to approach on this one and got hit for it. This is kind of the trouble with being the shorter guy at Florentine on Florentine or single sword, is that it's really hard to drive in and close on the other guy. Like, I want to say it's like 2 or 3 times harder and requires more skill than gotta being the person who has the range advantage against the few people that are shorter than me, is what I've noticed. So it's not when I'm the tall one in the fight, I'm like, oh fuck yeah, like I'm gonna hang back here all day. You could do this, right? But when you're the shorter guy and you have to close in, one of the things that you have to get used to is it's almost never okay to just go straight in unless you were like way faster than them. And I think that that's like not the case here, where there's like not that kind of gap in skill. So it looked like Darb's setup was he wanted to do he just kind of did some circling, which is great. It's great to start your fights with a little bit of circling to just see if you can get their foot position or their hip position like misaligned to you when you closed in. That's a great first step. But then he kind of just said, fuck it, and then went straight in and like, I'm going to press on him. And I think that can work, but it requires like a skill disparity where you're going to get like really surprised and flustered if you do that. And I think that's just not present here. So what we needed to do was some kind of like pump or setup or something like that. So side to side, and then, okay, I'm coming in. Yeah, and we had that part of the approach that didn't work out here. Is it kind of like he kicked up his back leg to kind of try to move forward with his torso instead of his feet. And I think what you want to do there is like just step forward in neutral if you're trying to close. The other thing that we needed to do if you wanted to close was create some sort of context or threat or something like that. I think a great thing that he could have done with working off of what he's already doing is just kind of like pump a stab and then move offline a little bit and then try to go forward. Or stutter a little bit. Like if you notice, like, okay, it looks like Tiid, if you read and say that, like, I think that they really want my body, you can, like, stutter your hand up to get the body, and then as you close in, throw your hand down. Because it looks like most of Tiid's, most of what he's wanted so far in these past couple of fights is to try to hit these hips, especially because I think... I don't know if he just doesn't feel confident in attacking these upper quadrants because Darb is kind of holding his swords pretty close to himself, right? He's kind of like here, but he's pointing them forward. So that kind of feels like it'd be harder to hit the body and arms like around the sword, especially since if you swing at those, there's a very good chance that he's just going to extend and snap when you do that. So I think Tiid's kind of fixated on driving around to these hips. So you could do something like when you come in, just take this hand, raise this hand up in a stutter, and then down to create some defensive coverage like that as you step forward. It's like one example of what you would do. And then bonus points for doing it with the other hand while you kill them with the main hand. Fighting the orange pants. Thanks for the feedback. Yeah, thanks for tuning in. You're doing a great job. I hope you didn't just tune in. I've been giving you some props too. Put that back. That's a hard position. Okay, let's go back. Yeah, thanks for being willing, and thanks for coming by. Let's go back. I'm going to see that one more time. Okay, long range snipe. Okay, so... from Tiid's perspective, I like what you did here, right? So I think the past couple of fights, you have kind of swung at these low quadrants down here. But this time you get an arm from that. So that's good. And then I liked your follow-up plan. Is once you got that arm, you stuttered with one hand to try to get their sword just offline or out of position and then hit them. A lot of times people like try to jump them too fast, but in a situation where you're Florentine on Florentine, if you get an arm down, you want to take their time, get their sword out of position first and then hit them instead of like just trying to overwhelm them. And I think your plan did that well here. So it's like, I'm going to get that arm. Okay. And then quick stutter. Bonk. Right? I don't know if you got this block or not. I can't really tell for the body language. But I think just as an approach, whether you got hit or not, that was smart. I think that the only thing that I would have changed, you did not. Okay. The only thing that I would change here is like a little bit more confidence in your stutter. So I'm seeing that when we'll watch this again, and I think that you stuttered, and then you kind of paused to see if your stutter would work, and then you swung at him. And I think that was why you got hit here. Like when you stutter, you kind of have to know that it's gonna work, because by the time you take that beat to check if your stutter moved their hand out of position, and you check and react to the fact that they've moved, now they're probably already swinging at you because they've had the time to realize that it was a stutter. So like if you're gonna stutter, which was a smart thing to do, you have to commit. It's pump whack, and you just don't wait to see what happens. Just do it. And if you want to try to see if the stutter is gonna work, what you do is you just do a stutter by itself from a safe range, and don't throw a follow-up to see if they're going to react to it. And then you store that information in your mind, and then do just a bunch of other junk, like meaningless stuff, like some circling, some safe shots, and then do the stutter again, and then throw it immediately, right? So there's like a little preemptive research phase where you need to figure out, is this guy going to react to my stutter? And then you wait a little bit for them to forget about the stutter with just some side-to-side movement. There's anything, right? It doesn't have to be anything serious. You just need to give them time to forget that the stutter was in your arsenal. It really only takes like 5 seconds. And then stutter and throw, and don't wait to see. So check this out. It's like stutter, watch, throw, right? Instead of just stutter, throw, there's like a tiny little pause. Let's see if you can see the pause here. Does that make sense? So, and like stutters and fakes and stuff, you really don't have the time to see if it'll work while you're doing it. You have to do like prior research and see if they'll react to it, and then use it later without reacting to their movement. In my opinion, I think some people will tell you different, and they're reacting to the movement in place. And I'm highly suspicious that people that say that are lying about how fast they're processing the fight, because my mind has never really worked that way. So from Darb's perspective, I think, what we got? It looks like we just missed a block here. I think it looks like you kind of phoned it in a little bit on the footwork on this one. And as soon as you saw an opening, you threw for it. I think it looked like you recognized that there was a stutter and a space to throw, and kind of like threw to reset, which is like fine, right? It's that optimal in my opinion, but it's like a very common thing to do. But you want to just make sure that you keep that movement crisp. And when you're down an arm in single sword against like a combination, you really need to take like another step back and create a little bit of extra space for yourself. You kind of want to, I think when I'm single sword against full combo, I take like an extra half step back. And what I usually want to make them do is try to get them to drive forward to attack you, and then try to like catch them on a mistake, and just taking a little bit more distance back would really help. I think that would interplay well with what I see as Tiid's footwork here, where a lot of these shot positions, Tiid is ending on that very heavy forward lunge. Not here. That looks good. That was good footwork. There was previous examples of like a forward lunge that was essentially looked like, if we have like a stick figure here, we had like a leg. I'm a terrible artist. Leg here, torso, head, arms, like this. Bad swords, where like all the weight was here. So if you have someone who will drive the bulk of their weight over that front foot, it's really helpful to take a half extra step back and try to get them into this position, and then use some lateral movement when they're in it to try to give yourself like a momentary extra advantage. You kind of want to think about it as like you've got 4, you start the fight with 4 points, right? 2 arms and 2 legs. Now you're down to 3 points. But if you can get your opponent in this position and momentarily they can't move their legs because their weight is driving down over this leg, and it'll take a long time to push back and go this way. So you essentially just have 2 arms to deal with and no legs. So now it's 3 to 2 for like just a moment. So you might want to take advantage of that. So let's see, what's this comment? I can see that. I feel like I try and all or nothing when I'm single arm, but I can definitely recall what you're talking about being used against me and getting picked, trying to just to finish the kill. Yeah, you kind of want to like get them impatient and try to jump you and try to get your opponent to feel like indignant and be like, oh, you've only got 1 sword. How dare you not approach me? Like, and just make them approach and then try to take their legs from them with some kind of positioning. And it's also okay for like if you're doing some extended spars and you start getting like a little bit tired. I want to say like if it's like a first to 10 where you're keeping track, like don't phone it in, right? Like you want to keep your intensity up, try to keep that range control up the entire time. It's just generally good practice. But I think that there's also something to be said for throwing to reset when you're down an arm in a tournament. Especially like in Florentine on Florentine, it's really not that hard to just drive forward and hit someone in the body and simul to get a reset. So I can see that perspective too. So good setup by Tiid. I like the hitting his sword safely from a safe distance to try to elicit an approach. That looked good. I think you're maybe, when you're doing this, you're a little bit... So that first one was maybe a little bit too far forward. I think this one looks better, right? Because that first one... No, that looks fine. This one, I think, is a little bit far forward. Oops. Wrong button. This one's like weights over this front foot. I think the other two that I liked better, where your weight was a little bit more like centered right here and you weren't too overextended. So that may be something to practice, where you can like pell, taking a step forward to a comfortable position where your weight's not too far forward for your safe shot, and then kind of pulse backwards. I think it looked good. This is a miniature optimization, but maybe something that I would add, especially as like a taller, lighter dude. It's a power. I liked from Darb's side as he kind of he took like 3 shots and he's like, okay, I'm calling this. This is silly. And he took, what's that silly, but I'm just talking about from his perspective. It's a valid way of approaching. But he's like, all right, I'm done letting him hit my hand safely. I'm coming in. But instead of just like going straight in, a really good technique to do is to move this foot into the forward foot and kind of step around like that. Because what it does is it takes your shoulders and reorients them, and it changes the coordinate system so that if your opponent doesn't notice that you do that right away, a lot of the time what can happen is they can like completely miss shots or miss target them or hit your guard a lot easier. So just like making that geometric system be not what they thought it would be by switching those feet when you approach, I think is really powerful in Florentine. I think what would have made this even better would be kind of if you could switch feet and instead of going straight, go like kind of lateral in, or maybe even switch feet and then go kind of this way out and around to the one side. So one thing I'm noticing from the both of you guys is you're kind of engaging both of your swords with each other on equal terms, right? So like this sword's going to hit this side, this sword's going to hit this side, and you guys are trying to deal with both swords at the same time, and that's like level 1, right? But level 2 is using that lateral movement to try to access like one hand at a time. So instead of like trying to just switch forward, confuse the coordinate system and move forward, we can like step offline and then switch it so that we're just dealing with this hand and then this hand is not immediately accessible because they have to like turn their body to be able to reach you. So just like moving away from one hand, doesn't matter which one, but move away from one hand to make it inconvenient for them to swing at you while you use both, I think is a key Florentine feature. But I like this. You didn't sit here all day and let him pound at you at this length. You kind of like took 3, and then when you realize like, okay, I think he's not serious, you did some pretty good range control and footwork, a good footwork technique to get in there. So I just add that lateral step if you can. And then from Tiid's perspective, so I think 3 chops is excessive for this kind of situation. I think 2 is likely to get you a response. 3 is definitely going to give you a response that you're maybe not ready for. So what I would do is instead of swinging 3 times with this hand, I would swing 2 times with this hand, and then on shot 2, I would swing once with this hand, and maybe like try to throw across with this hand and hit this forearm, right? Because if you're swinging out and around with this hand, right, what's this hand going to do here? It's probably going to migrate out a little bit this way to the side to kind of hedge his bets, to block off that side a little bit better. So if you drag that hand out and you take this hand and then kind of chop over in this way with the opening that you've created, especially if you throw it flat and across like that, because now your hand is in the way of this hand kind of trying to snap the arm from you. If you put your arm across like that and your sword ends up in that range, but you can cross with Florentine, but it's more like a quick chop this way or a quick chop this way at the lead arm. And I think that your repeated little jabs with your left hand here are accomplishing the job of getting his hand to move and getting his guard to lock down. I think you just kind of gave him too long to think about it here. But I think this was like a very smart start. And we kind of just, I think at this point, Darb is kind of like get masked on, bud. He just came in and he got bonked for it. I think that was the start of like a good plan, though. Sucks. So we got that ranging stance. Hit backwards. Hey, great range control there, Tiid. I like that a lot. We'll watch that one more time. No major notes there. It looked like a pretty... I think Darb's doing some good lateral movement. Yep. There's good ranging there. Like you got him to charge at you, and you had some precise counterattacks. That's solid. Oh, nice zoom. Nice zoom. I didn't know that there was editing. I love that. Now we're back to the wrong fight. 53. Nice editing, Bail 9. Okay. Yeah. That's good. That was a good combo. I think that was that cross shot that I just talked about. Let's see, go back. The cross shot, Tiid, that I was talking about, where you were throwing a couple jabs with your left hand, this is basically the shot that I would want to throw you. It's just this line, and you'd see how you wouldn't be able to, if your hand was higher, you wouldn't be able to use this hand to hit across this side because this hand is in the way. So that's kind of a good example of what I was referring to. Let's get this back up. I think it would be nice if we had more time to edit stuff. I feel like some nice like Dragon Ball Z auras and crackling electricity and like little chunks of ground floating up would work well for LARP fights. That's fun. I didn't take forever though, man. If only we had unlimited time for this hobby. Both feet off the ground freeze frame there would look great with some After Effects. Call the animators. Why don't we have animators? We need animators. Get my agents on the phone. Why don't we have agents? I think the main theme that I'm seeing here in the 1 minute we've got before the ad break is Tiid. I think that you're leading with this kind of long attack here in this position where your weight's kind of too far forward. I think that's locking you in place and giving Darb the time to kind of get in and get close to like his range. So I think we need to get you a little bit lighter on your feet and not extending so far forward with your back, so that your attacks are like a little bit less committals. I feel like as a boxer, a good analogy was like you're throwing all hooks here, right? Like if you're a boxer, you knock some people the fuck out for sure, right? But we got to get you jabbing so that you can get that response and be able to like back away and take advantage of the response that you're creating. Yeah, that's okay. Overextending is like, I think that's the main thing that people do when they start, because it's like you got to extend to get that kill. And sometimes you have to overextend to be able to reach far enough to do that. It's just one of those things that we just kind of slowly make optimizations around that. But it looks like you guys are getting a solid A game going on, but you want to start making the optimization if not overextending. So I think like thematically amongst like the first couple of fights, which we spent a long time on already, I think that's kind of what's we've got kind of like the same actions going on throughout the rest of these fights from what I've seen so far. But I think the main theme is we've got good attempts at jabs by Tiid over here, or maybe some light overextension here. I think that Darb's lateral movement is working really well, but they're not quite always executing it. So those are some adjustments that I would make, and especially like thinking about like when you're hand matching and such. And throwing across to try to create some coverage. Florentine's kind of hard to critique because, like, there are so many things that would work in Florentine, right? Because, like, I mean, you don't have a shield to cover a lot of stuff, so there's not quite as many ways to limit your opponent's options. But those are maybe some places that I would start. I think. Let's go back. So this is an example. We got Darb trying to do like kind of a fake from kind of far away. So as a guy who's like a little bit on the shorter side, you're probably taller than me. I'm 5'6", so like statistically probably a little taller than me. But this is performed, there's two issues that I see with this fake is it's performed from too far away to be reasonably threatening. And you also haven't shown him that you can really fake on him very much yet, right? So it ties into my earlier point that I made about Tiid, 5'7". Yeah, you got an inch on me, man. It's the most important inch. It's the first one. This ties into the earlier point I made with Tiid, where like you want to spend like a fight or two researching people's reactions to feints and not kind of just like try them out of the blue and hope that it works. Just like throw a feint while you're moving laterally around them to see if you get the response that you think that you're going to get. And it's especially important in Florentine because like a lot of the times the response that you're going to get from faking on people is they're going to swing, right? They've got 2 swords. They're going to hit the sword button and they're going to like simul you, right? So you need to be kind of judicious with trying with how you implement those kinds of feints. So feint first without throwing a committal attack afterwards. See what they do and let that inform the plan that you're going to make there. So, however, like, it is good that you tried to adjust the fight to include different parameters. So, like, we've got some evolution here across fights, so that's good. That's good. Looks like you did get a hit out of it, too. I like that stutter step. So, like a little pop. You kind of mix up the timing a little bit. So the thing that I noticed across the last, I think the first 4 fights and the last 4 or 5 fights, Darb, is the first fights that started out going really well for you. Your lateral movement was very solid. You were mixing up a lot of the angles. And I think this last 4 or 5 fights, you're kind of just going straight forward. And I think that's playing into Tiid's game where he wants to kind of back up and range you out. So I think that that's like good evidence of what happens when your lateral movement starts to shut down. I think by the time a person gets like 5 minutes in for sparring, it's natural to have like a sag in your energy. And that's fine. Like that happens to me too. But there are ways that you could think about like your endurance is sort of like an HP meter in a game that has some regen over time, right? And that lateral movement costs some HP for you to do, and the straight rush forward costs some HP for you to do. So I think what happens is, like, as we start to get like a little bit tired, a little bit out of breath, and lose a little bit of energy, that we want to just keep it to the thing that kills them, which is like the forward movement in our head. But it's actually the lateral movement that's opening up the door for the forward movement to kill them. So what you want to do is just you don't have to make any like miraculous changes to do your conditioning or anything. All you got to do is be a little bit more patient and give yourself some time to recuperate some stamina. When you feel yourself starting to like want to rush in a lot, just move backwards, move laterally, be like, you know what, buddy, you close. Like, you come closer to me. Like, I'm tired of rushing you. You can take a turn to open up, right? And it's just like back up. And what that can do is like, I think it's a lot. I think in a fight, the true technical onus is on the person who like opens the fight by throwing the first fake or shot and takes the first like big charge in. I think that is like 2 times at least harder to execute than defending yourself and counterattacking. I feel like it's just easier to do that for the most part. So what you could do is like you're doing pretty much like all the closing and responding here and all the rushing down. When you feel yourself starting to not want to move laterally, just take some fights and back up and circle around and counter strike and see if you can kind of recuperate some of that endurance, and then start back with the offense where you're using your lateral movement and moving forward again. So I think it's like one of those strategies that can be a little bit hard to cultivate, but you have to keep your energy budget in mind and work around it. Nice transition. Editing. Okay, sword and board, kiss my pieces. Oh, I love that. That's funny. Excuse me. All right, sword and board. I think this, we have a strap shield on the left. I'm not sure if I think this is a punch. It's a punch on the right. I like that scoop. -6. When you get that leg, you stay on the center line here and just kind of try to close in on him. You don't have to like be a jerk and circle around your friend and drive his knee into the mud, but you do at least want to step this far left and right to give yourself some better angles there. So if you eliminated their ability to counter your side-to-side movement, you absolutely want to use side-to-side movement. And I think less is more in that scenario, because if you take like big steps to the left or right or circle continuously, it's easier to see coming because you have to kind of like load yourself and bend your knees into those big burst steps. But I feel like tiny steps to the left and right in this position are super overpowered. Like they adjust the coordinate system, they make it harder for your opponent to block your attacks and see them coming. And it's also harder to read those steps because the steps are so small, and you can see how his line of sight is like looking up here, right? So you're too close, and his field of vision is going to kind of cut off around here. You can't see your feet, right? So if you step like a little bit left and right, that could be a big bonus there. So you don't want to go straight in. Smart choice of knee pads. What do we get? I look like a kind of a missed keyhole stab, just some confusion. Darb, you did a good job trying to hit scoop shots on this sword side here. That's good. I think you threw a couple of those in a row. Those the sword side shots that are like dark sides and underside shots and scoops and things like that, and like especially the leg to like you're throwing like a leg to an upward scoop like that. So those are more like mix-ups than they are initial attacks, in my opinion. So you kind of want to keep those on reserve, but they're definitely something that I wouldn't throw like two of them in a row. And the two in a row that you threw, I think that you would want to add some lateral movement to try to get the angle to exacerbate the angle a little bit, because if you step off to the sword side, the scoopy shots are kind of hard to throw, and I feel like you need to change to that lateral access to open up the shot for that to be able to work too. So you kind of just like threw two underside scoops coming straight on. Make sure you add that lateral movement in there, and you want to try to, I feel like the order of operations is you want to threaten some shield side stuff first with like shoulder wraps, or like just safe high crosses is fine. That's like whatever. But if you get some shield side action going on, that opens up sword side shots that are like harder to hit and are like lower and scoopier and that kind of thing. So I would start maybe with those kinds of things first and then go into this other game. It could be that you're just practicing those shots, so you're using them first. That's also fine. That's exactly how that's done. Is you just mash the dark side button until you improve at that. So that's another reason to use them. So that was a good shield side attempt, but like a narrow miss there. And I like that fake too. That actually really, Tiid, what I like about this a lot, it looks like you had like a narrow miss on the shoulder wrap, like no big deal. But what I love about this is that you threw the high cross first, right? And this is good form on a cross, in my opinion, where you've got shield side coverage over here on your sword side to account for the scoops that Darb is trying to do. So like A+ form there, right? And I really feel like the follow-up fake really looks like it's a high cross coming in. So check this out. That looked great. I was like, that's a high cross for sure. And yep. There's the shoulder wrap. It looks like you just. I think it looks like Darb like leaned, so you came down low on the arm. Them's the breaks, but that was a good strategy. I call that using context or building context, where it's like okay to throw something like safe that you know that's not going to work, to kind of sensitize your opponent's defense to like go over into that region, and then use that exact same shot as the fake and the next thing. I think that's smart stuff. So. That was good. If that wasn't intentional, like you're on the right track, just make that intentional. Try to figure out like other ways that you could do that. Oh, wow. I think you kind of let Darb pick at you here. I think this would have been a good time to use another blade beat, where if we're both down on our knees, right? And Darb is kind of just he's hanging out, he's loitering on this sword side over here, and he's not even really like retracting his sword side back here. So I understand the inclination to like not want to throw over here, right? Because that feels like it's going to open up this side that he's already going for, so it makes sense. But what you could do is just say, no, I don't want to play that, and just swat down at his sword and get him locked down there, and then swing over like that when he's like trying to get his sword back from the recoil of the blade beat. Like just smack the sword and then wrap over. Or you can fake doing that, or when you see him trying to fish around for that dark side shotting in, you can kind of just snap down to this forearm and just kind of chop that off too, right? Because if he's not going to just like leave his arm out there while you chop at it, he's going to bring his shit back. And if his stuff is back, his sword's like back behind his shield because he's trying to protect it. Now you have the opportunity to kind of throw over this way or like wrap the shield or something like that. And I think like with you saw the defensive posture where you crossed your shield over like underneath your armpit. Like I think that you could take that situation and probably still hit him. I think you kind of just got like locked down in that. But those are some like examples of escape plans for that position where a person is kind of like they're extending and fishing on a specific side, but the area that you're fishing to is kind of like locking down your offense so that you don't feel safe to swing. And the other thing that you can do is you can kind of turn away a little bit and tuck back to put more defensive coverage on this side of your arm. So what I mean is like if you take this knee and rotate back slightly, that'll provide a bait to your sword side shoulder, and it'll pull your sword back a little bit, and your shield will rotate back a little bit too. And that'll make it even safer to like chop off at his arm. And then when he like retreats, you can restore his normal position, right? So like just because you're down on your knees doesn't mean that you can't like rotate to change the angles of the fight. So that might be something to play with too. That looked like a spin. That looked like a spin for sure. Maybe didn't get the depth on the hip wrap, but it looked good. I think going back to what we were talking about with context, I think if you wanted to fake this spin, you probably needed to hit him with a normal spin first and not just like fake the spin on him. I don't know if there was one from an earlier day or if you spin on him frequently, but land that spin first, then do the fake spin. Because that was a very convincing fake spin, like I thought it was going to be one too. But you need to land the first one to be able to fake it. I feel like fights kind of start off as a sequence. They kind of start off like very straightforward and honest as the two fighters kind of establish like, well, like what are my weapons, right? And by weapons, I mean like what are my fast, powerful, safe shots that I can definitely hit you with, right? So like you kind of have to demonstrate that you can hit people with wrap shots before you can start faking those wrap shots. I think everybody's kind of threatened by the high cross because it's like the best shot in the game and also the easiest to throw. So you can kind of always fake that one, but you kind of have to. So like if you think about it, like you could fake a high cross and then throw the shoulder wrap to like demonstrate that you can hit that shoulder, and then you can start faking the shoulder wrap to maybe hit the hip, right? And then you can start faking for the hip. But you kind of have to prove that you can hit the thing before you start faking it. So make sure you establish that context first. Like, hit that spin, then fake the spin. Have you ever heard the metaphor that fighting is like a conversation? I think that that thought process is what people think of when they just say fighting is a conversation. But a lot of the times they don't really explain that. And they just say, fighting is a conversation and expect you to understand it. But I think that progressively adding context by proving you can hit the thing before faking it, that thing is a good way to fight somebody. And there's other ways of thinking about it. Like if you guys spar with each other a lot, sometimes you can have like pre-existing context and you may be faking. Maybe you've hit Darb with spins on a different day. Like, that makes total sense, and that would be a good time to fake a spin if you've already landed on him a previous day and you know that he's looking for it. I'm just saying, like, I'm kind of examining this from the sense that, like, it's the first time you two have, like, ever fought each other, right? Because I think that's, like, the best way of, like, looking at it. But that's just another possibility that could have happened. So 20% of the time that spin move lands, 100% of the time for me. So I'll start taking that into consideration moving forward with a lot of my moves. Yeah, I think it could be nice to like just write out this sequence of like, if I was in a tournament fighting a totally new person that I know is good, I've never fought them before, what moves would I use in the first fight? What moves would I use in the second fight? And then kind of like work through it that way. And there's like no hard, fast answers there. But it's always helpful to like workshop that series in your mind as you go forward. I think that like we do that a lot subconsciously in fights, but it's really rare for people to do that consciously and think about that like progressive game plan thing consciously. That's something that I kind of learned from playing competitive Smash Ultimate. Is like you have to prove that people need to be afraid of the move first before you can kind of like start baiting or tricking them with that move. The fighting game. Smash. Don't miss it. Done with that. Anyway, moving forward. I have a high crossing addiction. Man, high crossing is the best shot in the game. And people poo-poo it a lot. And it's like when you have a fighting game and you have a character with a really good move and they just hit that move over and over again, and that's just like we really kind of poop on that in Amtgard and like other foam fighting sports. We're like, oh, stop high crossing, and they're just like never say that shit like in a fighting game like Street Fighter or Smash or something like that. Like if you had a move that worked super well and you mashed on that move and it kept hitting you. In the fighting game, the term that they would use is like get good scrub. Like if you keep getting hit by it. So like I feel like the high cross is like best shot in the game, easiest shot to throw, super safe to plan around, almost always a good and safe option. Like it's fine, and you definitely want to try to like add other stuff to it. But I feel like almost all of my fighting is built off the fact that like, yeah, I can high cross you. Like I can do that. And then it kind of progresses from there. And I think I don't always start with a high cross, but I usually always start with like at least the threat of it because it's so easy to use and easy to land. So it's like fight one. I think when I fight people I don't know, I feel like I almost always assume that high cross is going to be the first shot because it's just the best freaking one. Like it's your best button in the game, so you're gonna press it, man. I think like other general notes is I feel like you guys were paying really good attention to your range and your lateral movement in Florentine, and it may partially be because that series was first, and maybe the energy level was like a little bit lower for series 2. But you want to try to keep up that same level of lateral movement and range control intensity in board, because it is just as important. I think that the both of you are kind of making the assumption that your shield is going to keep you safe, so you don't have to move your feet very much. You have to keep moving your feet because that shield is keeping the other guy super safe, and you need to get them to move that shield to the wrong position, and you're going to accomplish a good portion of that with that lateral movement and with that range control. So make sure that you're taking that movement and range control seriously, and not kind of just like settling into board and grinding it out. I think that that's fine for like the tail end of a casual practice, but when you want to treat like video reviews, in my opinion, with the same intensity as a tournament, maybe not the same emotions, but the same intensity and effort, because that's where you're gonna find like your best information. But you guys are kind of like standing a little bit too close to each other. You guys are kind of not like moving side to side to get around each other very much. I don't think it's because you can't. I think it's just because like it's bored. So you're kind of just like not, because you might feel like it's optional, or you might be tired. But just make sure that you kind of like just import that footwork and range control from Florentine into sword and board, and treat it similarly. I think the other thing that I'm seeing in this series is, Darb, I feel like you got this punch shield and you're using it like a strap shield, which is like a good start. But there are all sorts of like punch specific tricks that you can do that I don't see you doing in this series. You're doing like, I think you're doing primarily like shield foot forward. I might be wrong on that. I think I'm looking at Tiid a little bit more because he's being just a tiny bit more dynamic in his footwork. So my eye's kind of drawn that way. But you can do sword foot forward with punch shield, and it's really nice because it extends your reach, and you got this punch shield that can follow your sword with you. So like you can still be close to them, but your body is further away. And the closer that your punch shield gets to your opponent, the more angles it cuts off too. So you're using it competently as a strap shield, but there's like a whole world of optimizations with a punch shield that you could be making that I think that you should start kind of journeying towards. I think it'd be my general note. Here we got some shoulder reps in there. That was another note. It's definitely like more shoulder reps, more hip reps to get the shield to move away from the sword side to open it up a little bit more. But it looks like you guys are starting to do that later in this series. I feel like fight 1 is high cross, fight 2 shoulder wrap, fight 3 is hip wrap, and then fight 4 can be anything after that. Obviously not always in that order, but that's just kind of how I think about it. It's like layer 1, 2, and then everything. So, oh yeah, we didn't expect this review. Bale Norn was like, can you guys fight for content? Let's see, we weren't totally trying. So feedback's also, that's fine. I'm not. I'm having a great time looking at this stuff. I'm just saying that like there's probably an element of like critique and analysis that we're missing. And you know, I feel like in addition to like just providing Bale Norn content, which is like good for your park, you're missing out on some of like the extra feedback that you would get, or the extra analysis that you would be able to do of your own fighting. Is like the only point that I'm making. Plus, like, you guys might have done like class games for like 4 hours before this had been smoked, so that's super fair too. Oh, I like that fake. That was that high cross fake again. That looks good. I wanna start playing with that myself. I feel like a lot of my high cross fakes are kind of just like I'll move like a little bit. I want to start doing like a bigger one to see if I can get more of a reaction out of that. That was by Tiid. Yeah, that was good. That was good. I feel like you're getting a lot of good umph in that fake. It looks very convincing. I feel like somehow that you're pumping it like with your shoulder and your body really well, and it looks very convincing. Got that fake from Sir Crit. You should see his. It's beautiful. If you find me a video, I'd love to watch it. I think this looks like, oh yes, the beautiful zoom in. Okay, go back. Back. Kudos to the editor. Darb, you gotta tip your editor, man. I love this double fake here with the double dark side and the shot. You just got to make sure that when you throw the dark side, that you like always snap out of it. When I throw a dark side, I like to try to retreat and back off because I feel like I get kind of stuck around like that. So it feels like a very committal and terminal thing to do. So when I throw that dark side, you want to try to like practicing backing off or like snapping up with another attack or something like that, or like moving out around laterally. But you can't ever throw a dark side and kind of just like stop there. I think this is it. That was great. That was great. All right, I think that's the only video that I'm gonna do. I think we got like a lot of content out of that. Thanks for showing up, especially like on such short notice. I basically was gonna stream just some Hollow Knight today, but my hands are kind of sore from playing Hollow Knight. And I saw Bale Norn drop this in Serious Foam Fighter, so I decided to take a look. So thanks for being good sports. Do you have any if you have any questions for me, you can hit it, drop them in the chat now. I think the other thing is if you guys want to ever want like more critique, especially like after if you want to try to implement some of the things that I've suggested and then come back in like 20 practices or so. My napkin math is like 20 practices is about the minimum to make significant changes to your game. I would love to do this again. I think you guys are having a ton of fun, being very experimental and doing some interesting stuff, being very good sports about the critique and analysis and stuff. So this has been great content and a lot of fun to do.